Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, hi Jackson, hi Karen. You put it- So Karen and Jackson, we are waiting for the rest of the team to join as well, and then we'll start.
No problem. We'll be waiting as well.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining the webinar today. For the interest of time, we'll just begin the session. The rest will catch up along the way. My name is Elizabeth Odima. I'll be your host for today's session. And joining me in the session today is Jeremy. Jeremy Rugunya, who will be our trainer for this masterclass today. So also in the meantime, you can feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box, and also you can mention one expectation from you are expecting from this training, or one objective of you joining this masterclass today. And to start us off, thank you for the innovators who have been able to create time to join, and also the team from Victoria Ventures as well. And to start us off as well, I would just like to give a brief introduction of why we are having this training here today. So for the sake of Jeremy, who might not be too conversant with Victoria Ventures or the Research to Commercialization program, so this is a program aimed at in increasing or promoting innovations in our learning institutions or institutions of higher learning. So we do this through collaboration with various partners as well. So key among them is Victoria Ventures number one, who is the implementing partner. We also have Kenya and RISA, who we work together with to ensure that the innovators in this institution of higher learning are also able to come up with innovations that they can also commercialize. Because mostly you find that innovations in our universities are not maybe given that much support that they need to commercialize, yet these are the institutions or places where most of the innovations come from as well. Yeah, so that is a brief introduction of today's session. And next, I'll take you through the program of today as well. Just give me a minute to run my screen. All right, I'll be sharing the program in a minute. Yeah, so for today, we'll have an introduction from Jeremy, who will take us through what he does and how he offers support to startups and innovators in this ecosystem. And then after that, we'll have a brief introduction into the topic of the day, which is effective costing and pricing in the commercialization of research-based innovations as well. This will be followed with understanding of costing for commercial ventures. So how do you effectively cost your innovations, being that you are a startup in maybe a space that is developing? And then after that, we'll dive deeper into what are some of the pricing strategies that you can use when you are planning to commercialize your innovation, your idea, or your startup. And then we'll have a Q&A session where you'll get to maybe seek more clarification or ask more questions in line with the topic of the day. And then after that, we'll wrap up and have some key takeaways, and also maybe strategize on the next training or the next webinar that might be of help as you follow up on what has been trained today. And at this juncture, I'll stop there in the interest of time and welcome Jeremy. So Jeremy will introduce himself and then straight on just jump on to the masterclass. Thank you. Jeremy, you're welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is CPA Jeremy Rugunya. I head an accounting firm known as SFI Global. Sorry, SFI Kenya, which is part of SFI Global. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in as SFI is the fact that we have, and I think that makes us quite unique, the fact that actually do, our roots are very academic, I think, as opposed to probably other consulting firms, in the sense that we are the product of the SFI Institute. And even today, we also have what is known as the SFI Business School. But today I'm here in collaboration with Victoria Ventures to be able to look at this topic of pricing. And so I think we can just be able to dive right into it. 1 minute. Yeah, so this is a strategic pricing masterclass for innovators held in collaboration with Victoria Ventures. And the question we are asking is why effective costing and pricing? And one of the things why that is important is because you want to be able to determine optimal value for your product. You want to be able to get the most that you can. The language we use in business is you don't want to leave any money on the table. You want to be paid what is your worth. The other reason why this is important is because it ensures sustainable growth. When it comes to commercialization, then what you're thinking about is that even though you came up with the idea, then you want that idea to grow into a business, and you want that business to be able to generate returns. And the only way that that is sustainable is if you are able to price your product correctly, or to price it accurately, so that at the end of the day, the net inflow, the net cash inflow exceeds the net cash outflow. So that is what ensures that you have sustainable growth. Then the other thing is because of why it would be important to consider effective costing and effective pricing is because of regulatory requirements. So for example, depending of course on the particular product that you're selling, the sector, some of them of course will be what we call exempt. Okay, some of them are exempt, others are zero rated. But in general, you want to be able to know what is the what is the tax implication of my price. So for example, will I be required to pay VAT on that? Or will I be required to pay income tax? And when it comes to some of the challenges that academicians are likely to face is the fact that you may probably you have come up with a product and you're really good at that, from the innovation side, but then the market dynamics and the market realities, such as the fact that If you make money, enough of it, and there is a surplus, then there is the taxman watching to see whether he can be able to share some of that. So some of the challenges which may be faced in what we call research to commercialization is understanding market dynamics. Because, you know, if you think about it, what happens is that you took time, you're an innovator, you took time to develop the product, and that implies that your strength may lie more so in innovation, that your strength may not necessarily be in other aspects of running a business. One of the books that I usually recommend for startups is a book known as E-Myth. I think I can just write it there. That is E-Myth. That is Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael Gerber. And this is one of the things he addresses. He says that, for example, coming up with a good product does not necessarily equate to running a good business that sells that product, okay? That coming up with a good product and being able to set up a business that effectively runs or markets that product profitably, the two do not necessarily equate. They could even be on the opposite side of the scale, because it might be that that very knowledge, the knowledge that you have, for example, of being able to develop a certain product, may end up being, in terms of now running the business, may end up being a hindrance, in the sense that if you only focused on that and you didn't realize that there are other aspects that come into running a business or into marketing that product, you know, like being able to think things like, who is going to be my customer, all right? Who will I be selling to? And being able to say, for example, being able to define your client niche is one of the important things that you would want to have as an entrepreneur. In fact, what Michael Gerber posits in the book is that inside you is both the innovator, the entrepreneur, and a manager. And you have to find the perfect balance where you say, even if I came up with this product, or even if I've been able to put together a team that has been able to develop this product, then I have to now start thinking strategically as an entrepreneur. Because if you're thinking of commercialization, then what you're thinking about is enterprise. To be able to think as an entrepreneur, I have to start thinking about where do I want the vehicle that is going to carry this product, and that vehicle is going to be the company. Where do I want it to be? So there's the vision setting, but then maybe just coming down to what is more appropriate to this session is being able to say, who am I selling to? All right, who is my client and who is my customer? So at times you find that your consumer and your customer may be different. What do I mean by that? For example, you may find that the product that you've come up with is one that you could be able to attract, say, donor funding for, okay? That maybe you have a product that is targeting the low-end consumers within society, and there is, for example, a donor agency that is willing to be able to fund you for that. So you see that is a different market dynamic, as opposed to where I am the one that the person that I am selling to is also the consumer. I think in terms of marketing, one of the examples that is usually used to explain this in terms of schools, all right? So for example, if for example, you have a product that is targeting students, then you know that the students are the consumers and you want to appeal to them so that they can be able to talk to the customer. So the consumer and the customer is not necessarily the same, because the customer is the person who is going to be parting with some money in exchange for that good or service. So that is one of the things, understanding market dynamics. And I think I've alluded to this one as well, where I talk of technical expertise versus market needs, that what it takes to come up with a great innovation is not necessarily what it takes to take that innovation to market. In the book I just mentioned, that is the E-Myth, he talks about McDonald's, which I think is a brand that we all know. And they were called the Kroc brothers. That McDonald's came and looked at what they have, and he realized they have the idea, but this idea they are sitting on is like the proverbial acres of diamond, that is a money-minting idea, but it needs to be systemized. You know, you need to build systems around it. You need to be able to show that these are the processes, and that way you can be able to scale. And at this point, allow me to mention that one of the things that happens then to founders is that at times you may want to consider, not always, but at times it helps to consider a co-founder that is able to complement in skill that you probably would be amiss in, but where you as the founder still want to be able to run most of the management roles, then you would want to be able to upskill yourself, such as you're doing today, which is in order. So the other challenge could be cost management skills. So how do I manage costs? And part of cost management, of course, starts with planning, being able to do budgeting, and being able to monitor the budgets. And what when we talk to entrepreneurs, the thing that we tell them, which I think then is relevant since we are looking at innovators being able to cross over to entrepreneurship, is that you do not necessarily acquire these skills so that you can be the one to practice them, but you want to acquire those skills so that you can be able to know this is what is required of me. And even if I am hiring, whether I am hiring an in-house resource, such as a cost manager, or whether I am hiring an outsourced resource, such as outsourced accountants, then I understand that this is what I am hiring them to do. So cost management skills, those could be some of the challenges that an innovator crossing over, or I don't know that that's the appropriate word. Let's say an innovator that is commercializing their research may encounter. And of course, either overpricing or underpricing. And I must say, also having been in this field for long, that is the world of finance, this is one of the things that is always challenging. We have recently started a startup around the area of sustainability, and we are finding that it's like we're having to relearn this all over again. Well, we already hacked it for the traditional accounting and tax services, but for this new product we are finding, you have to be able to understand, because you don't want to overprice and scare away the client, and you don't want to underprice. And number one, I think anyway, if you were to err, I would say you'd rather err on overpricing than underpricing, because when you underprice, number one, you may still scare away the client. There's a client who may think, no, I don't think you understand my need. It can't be going for that low price. In fact, when we learned economics, there was products known as Veblen goods, where they were saying that the more expensive they are, the higher demand. But you don't want to scare away the client because of underpricing. But then the other pitfall with underpricing is you may find that it makes you not be able to meet your costs, and therefore the business becomes unsustainable. So those are some of the challenges that I can envision, but of course it would still be good to hear from the innovators. But those are just off the top of my head, some of the challenges that I could envision that an innovator commercializing their research is likely to encounter. So when we think of costing for commercial ventures, then you want to think of the commercial venture through its different stages. And what I mean by that is there is the place of setup. Of course, at times you may start research before you set up the company, but ideally, if you think entrepreneurially, then what will happen is that you would start by setting up. You say we are setting up this organization, and based on that, we do research. Part of research is what is known as the minimum viable product. So you say we have proof of concept, and based on that, now we can be able. So it's actually at that point, for example, if someone is looking for investors, where they are able to say, I am now looking for an investor because I've been able to prove that this product is working, and I've also been able to prove that there is demand for it. Okay, and demand is defined as the willingness and ability to pay. So in other words, there is a willing customer. There's somebody willing to part with money in exchange for my product. So you have done, you've set up, and you've been able to carry out research. That's a minimum viable product, proof of concept, whichever order those two. It could be that you set up and then researched, or research and then set up. But then you go to market, and having gone to market, then ultimately what many entrepreneurs are looking at is being able to scale, where you can now be able to sell the product and to as wide number of customers as possible for the lowest price, and be able to maximize on your returns. And the thinking is you want to think of your costing in terms of those different stages. And so when you think of those different stages, the thing is that there is a stage where you are starting up. And when you're starting up, then what you have there are setup costs. Ordinarily, once you have set up those costs, we then call them sunk costs. We say they are sunk because they have already been expended, and there is not much that you can do having set up. The only thing is that you'd want to be able to recover them. And that's why we talk of break-even point. So when we talk of break-even points, there are two types of break-even points, that is BEP. So the first break-even point is where you say, this is the much that I have been able to invest in this business in terms of setup, all right? Maybe it has costed me, say, $1 million for me to be able to set up this business. So until this business generates profit of up to $1 million, then it's not yet gotten to a break even. So that is the first type of break even point, where you say, I'm able to recoup my initial investment. The second point of break even point, or the second type of break even point, is now once you start, okay? And that's, I desire that we can be able to see that there are those two stages. One, setup. Then number two, having set up, you're now in business. So now, once you set up, once you start, then you want to be able to say, I have my fixed costs, all right? So let's say that, for example, your fixed costs are costs which you must incur. Once you have started the business, they are going to be incurred anyway, whether or not there is any product that you're selling. So for example, if you set up an office and you say an office or a shop, let's just call it premises, and we assume that you're renting out these premises. So then the thing is that whether or not you make a sale, you're going to have to incur the cost of that premise. Same thing if, for example, you have an administrator, all right? You say, I want to have someone to man my shop, or a customer service representative. So if this person is paid a fixed salary, then that too is a fixed cost, all right? So those will be fixed costs, things like rent, internet, things like if, for example, you are on postpay and you get a bill that is constant, so those will be fixed costs. But then there are what we call variable costs. So variable costs, they depend on the number of units that you sell. So the more you sell, then the higher the cost. If you don't sell at all, that cost is not incurred. One of the costs that I can think about in terms of variable costs will be if you're manufacturing, if your innovation is going to be requiring manufacturing, then manufacturing costs, all the costs that go with manufacturing, the raw materials, the electricity attributed to manufacturing, then all those will be variable costs, okay? If, for example, you have sales commissions, because sales commissions, they depend on the amount of sales that you have made, all those are variable costs. And you're saying that I have fixed costs and I have variable costs. So let me back up a bit. We have said that once you start up, you're going to have the startup costs, which after some time are going to be, they're going to be sunk costs. But then now you have started the business and you're running. As you're running, you're going to be incurring two types of costs. One is a fixed cost and two is variable cost. That understanding is important in being able to calculate what we call the break-even point. So let's take a hypothetical situation where we say that the fixed costs are 100,000 per month, all right, 100,000 per month. And we say that our variable costs, so variable costs will be per unit. And let's say that, so let me just 1 minute. So we are saying that fixed costs, 100,000 per month. And then we have variable costs. So those, they depend on the number of units that you sell. So let us say, for the purposes of our conversation, that the variable cost is 10,000 per unit, 10,000 per unit. And that we sell, okay, so 10,000, whatever it is, could be 10,000 shillings, definitely $10,000. It must be a premium product. So let's say the variable cost is 10,000, and that the selling price is 30. Okay, that would be a really good margin. But let's say I've put that on chart, that you have fixed costs. This is what, as an entrepreneur, you will encounter day to day, or this is what you would want to be aware of, that I have fixed costs of 100,000. My variable cost per unit is 10,000, and my selling price per unit is 30,000. So the question is, at what point do I make money? All right. And the question is, how many units? I think it would be good to see if we can be able to answer that question. How many units do I need to sell to cover my fixed costs? I think that's a good question that we can be able to answer. Maybe you can put your answer on the chat. How many units do I need to sell at, if I have fixed cost of 100,000, variable cost of 10,000 per unit? Because we said variable costs, they depend on the number of units that you sell. If you sell nothing, there's no variable cost. And the selling price is 30,000. All right. I hope we are following.
Yes, we are following. It's only that personally I'm driving, so I may not be able to get to the chat so much.
All right. Thank you, Jackson. Anyone who is able to respond?
Maybe repeat the question, Jeremy. I answer while talking.
Thank you. Okay. I see Susan has actually gotten it correct. Yes, but if I may use, thank you, Agnes. It's good to know that you're following. So if I may use, okay, I can see there are more chats. Okay, so what we were saying is you started the business. Remember when you started the business, you invested $1 million. So that $1 million, we will want to recover it, but we are going to recover it over a long period of time. So it is a sunk cost, all right? We are going to take some time to be able to recover that. However, as we are running the business day to day, we have fixed costs, okay? Fixed costs. So by the way, when I say that you have sunk costs, it's things like what? Things like machinery, things like patent, if you have to patent your innovation, the company registration costs, all those will be the initial costs or the startup costs. But then having started, what will happen is that you'll be having direct costs and indirect costs. And the direct costs, they are the ones that we are calling variable, which are, in this case, we gave an example of 10,000 per unit. So why we say 10,000 per unit, we are saying that direct costs depend on how many units you sell. Then we say that in this particular case, supposing that for every unit, it costs me 10,000 to produce, but I sell it at 30,000, then I know I am making 20,000. And once I make 20,000, the question was, how many units do I need to sell to be able to cover my fixed costs? And that is what we call, that's the second type of break-even point, which Susan has given us the answer as 5. So in other words, even in whatever period, so we assumed the period here is a month. If, for example, the period is a month, then we are saying if my fixed cost per month, 100,000, I need to be able to sell 5 units so that I can be able to at least meet the fixed cost. And then now anything I sell above that is going to be profit. So of course, the thing about formulas, which as innovators, I think we would be able to enjoy is these formulas have variables, because if, for example, in this case, we are saying that the break-even point, as Susan has done it there, is 100 over 30 minus 10, then you're saying if you can vary, what are the variables within that equation? Number one, can I be able to bring down my fixed costs? Because if, for example, my fixed costs were at 80, then I break down much faster. I break even much faster. I can break even at 4 units. Again, so that's one variable, okay? The fixed cost. That is, so the fixed cost, if there's anything you can do about it, then it means that you're going to be able to break even much faster. Secondly, there is the selling price. So if you can be able to get a better price for your product, then it implies that you can also be able to make more money and therefore break even much faster. And the other one, of course, is if you can reduce the variable costs, that is the variable cost per unit. And now that is where the art of running the business comes in, because you are saying, what will it mean to increase the price? Because you can increase the price, and we know that generally, except for what I call the Veblen goods, generally what happens with a price increase is that we say that generally, as a rule of thumb, price is usually has an inverse relationship to demand. In other words, the higher the price, the less you sell. So you have to be able to know what is the optimal point where I am making enough sales at the right price, so that I'm not selling too high and then recording less sales, or too low and not being able to meet my costs. So that is the types of costing and costing through the different stages. So those are direct costs. I think maybe just looking at some of their examples. Yeah, so that's I think that is, we need not belabor that point. I think that point is home. So let us look at pricing in competitive markets, and what are the factors that you would want to consider. So the factors that you'd want to consider, number one is market demand. And demand, we defined demand as the willingness and ability to buy. So when you have someone who is willing and able to buy your price at your product at a certain price, then we say there is demand for your product. Now, how do you know whether there is demand for your product? That is why we do market research. And that's why, if you remember the stages that we looked at, we mentioned such things as, fine, I have the MVP, the minimum viable product, but am I able to actually say, we call it market validation. Does the market validate that this product, that there's demand for this product? So that's something that you want to be able to do, because anyway, if you're looking at scaling, and scaling is where you make a lot of sales, then it starts with you being able to make that one sale. So market demand, so at what price? And this is something which you can be able to do. So of course there is surveys, but also being able to see once, for example, we have this product in the market, what is the uptake? Of course, the other thing is there are many factors to consider. For example, if there's market segmentation, and you will find companies doing this very well, that they may have one product for up market and another one for another market. I think one of the best examples we had back then was Chase Bank, which was later bought by SBM. And you walk into Chase Bank and it is executive. It's executive. You have someone opening the door for you. You don't queue, all right? They were very keen on the dress code that is for the staff members. So that is Chase Bank. But the same bank had a Rafiki Microfinance. I'm not sure if they still do. And Rafiki Microfinance is tending to a different market altogether. And here what they are concerned about is this market. They don't care whether someone opens the door for me. What they care about is, can I get 5 times my savings in terms of what I've been able to put as savings? Can I be able to get a loan? What is the multiplier effect on my savings? So that is an example of market segmentation, which implies that even if what you're selling is essentially the same, you have different products in the sense of how you have packaged it, and which is important thinking, because at times when we think of a product, we just think of this is what I'm selling, but you're not thinking from the end or from the eye. You're not looking at it from the point of view of your customer, because if you look at it from the point of view of your customer, you may find that the same thing that you're selling, you may have different products for it. I don't know whether that makes sense. I hope it does. Then the other thing to consider is competition. If for example, there is a certain price at which your competitors are selling that product, then it may influence your pricing. Then customer value. In other words, how much value is the customer placing on that product? And there we talk about cost-based pricing versus value-based pricing. So cost-based pricing is fairly simple. You say, these are my costs, and I am going to put this markup. But then value-based pricing is to be able to say, what is the perceived value of this product in the eyes of the customer? So of course, the truth of the matter is that being able to find the right price is an art that mixes the two, where you say, this is the costs that I have incurred. I want to be able to cover those costs, but this is the perceived value of this product in the eyes of the customer. And part of the thing that informs the perceived value is actually competition, because competition talks about availability of substitutes. If for example, I am the only person who has this particular product, then, and it is meeting a particular need, then by default, it is highly priced, or sorry, it is highly valued, and therefore I can be able to put a premium price on it, and vice versa. And that's the reason why, and I want to believe that this is part of what you would have covered or would be covering later in terms of the research to commercialization. That is why the whole topic of intellectual property is very important, because why intellectual property matters is you're saying, I have been able to spend this much in terms of developing this product. And at times, once the product is in the market, then you can get people simply copying. And so competition then becomes not competition in terms of who you found in the market, but competition in terms of who copies you soon after you've been able to launch. But then if you have ring-fenced your innovation through appropriate IP, intellectual property, then so that is trademark or patent appropriately, then you're able at least to still maintain it. You're able to lock out competition, and therefore you can be able to fetch a better price for your product for enough time until you can be able to at least recover your initial costs. So in terms of pricing models, we have what is known as freemium, depending on what you're selling. So freemium will be, you can see it is a hybrid between the word free and premium. And it is, so freemium is actually, this type of pricing for freemium is actually what is known as penetration pricing, then price skimming. In other words, they are offering this to you for free, but then at some point there's going to kick in a premium. So there are many organizations that will do freemium products, but I think most of them will be actually, or what will be known as the subscription services. So for example, I think a good example is softwares. You will find that a software will give you, they'll tell you, you can try it for 3 months, okay? Or an application, an app, say even like LinkedIn, they tell you you have 1 month free or 2 or 3 months free. And the thing is, they know, or their strategy there is that once you have used the product for some time, you'll be too hooked. It implies they have confidence in their product. They say you'll be too hooked for you not to continue, and then you'll be willing to subscribe. So that is so freemium on its own. Usually it graduates to subscription, but then you can just have a subscription model that doesn't have the free offer. The other one is now where you just make a one-time sale. Okay, so for example, when you do what? For example, when you buy a phone, it's just you just buy it one time and that is it. So that could be another pricing model. I think there's something I would have wanted to mention there, which I think I left that out, which is price bundling. So price bundling is where you say, that is price bundling, okay, where you have a number of products. So for example, allow me to use my examples as a spy accountants. So for example, we could say that we have this package where you can get outsourced accounting, okay, by itself, or you can get, so let's say for the purposes of this conversation, outsourced accounting at 10,000 per month, tax returns filings at 10,000 per month, payroll management at 10,000 per month, and you can pick either of them. But if you pick all three, then you will get them for 20,000 or 25, okay? Or if you pick only two, instead of paying 20, you'll pay 18. But if you pick all three, you'll pay 25. So the advantage of price bundling is that it enables you to upsell, because someone will be like, okay, if I pick one of the product, it's 10,000, another is 10,000, another one is 10,000. But if I pick all three, I'm getting them for 25. So it's like, it's a deal. So that is price bundling, which is actually a strategy that you can be able to use both as a pricing strategy, but also for upselling. Then let us look at pricing in competitive markets. And here what you want to think, which I think I've also alluded to, is that as competitors enter, it may lead to potential price adjustments. And also, so here you're thinking through different stages of your business again, that if you're at a growth stage and competitors enter, then you may need to adjust the prices. You may need to adjust the prices downwards. Hopefully, because you're at a growth stage, you're already making enough sales, or you're selling enough units that even if you lower your price a bit, then you don't want to, you're not going to get into a loss-making position. Of course, generally, as a rule of thumb, lowering prices is not the best strategy for business success. The reason is because there will almost always be someone who can price it lower than you. That person could be someone who is just starting out and doesn't have the kind of cost that you have. But that person could also be, could be deep pockets. You know, you could have a deep-pocketed, they're called what? Multinational, MNC. Yeah, you could have a deep-pocketed multinational that decides we are going to push you out of market by lowering our prices, and they just look at whatever they are losing in terms of that lower prices as a business development cost. So from a strategy point of view, you want to have more than just lowering prices. You want to focus more on value. And when we look, I think there's something we look at and we see, you want to be able to get what are called the loyal customers. And if you can have a critical mass of loyal customers, then you can be sure that even with price competition, it might not necessarily affect your business. Let me close this. 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, so that is a pricing. You want to consider the stage at which you are. That then as market saturation occurs, then differentiation becomes critical. And differentiation basically is where you are able to clearly know this is my target market, right? And what we say in business is that rarely will it be that you sell to everyone. Rarely will it be that you sell to everyone. Ordinarily, you're able to find your niche, and finding your niche is to be able to know, am I up market, for example? Because that will also determine, I know that's not the scope of today's presentation, but let me just mention, allow me to just mention, that will determine the message you craft, for example, okay? The market you have probably heard it said that Lamborghini does not advertise on television, okay? All right, because they know this is our target market. We are not looking for the mass market, so we are not marketing through the mass media. So being able to define your niche is critical because it determines the message that you're going to craft. It also determines the channels through which you're going to be able to reach your customers. So competitive pricing, I think we've looked at that. Or the other thing you can be able to do is discounting and promotions. And ordinarily, you want to think through things like how those discounts are a win-win, or those promotions are a win-win. So for example, you can say such a thing as, if let's assume like your product is, let's say for example, an application or a software that requires subscription, then you can say, if you subscribe per month, the cost is going to be $100. And that means if I subscribe the whole year per month, it is $1,200. But then you say, but if you subscribe per annum, which essentially means I am collecting beforehand, then if you do annual subscription, it is 900. So a monthly subscription is 100 per month, but annual subscription is 900 per annum, which basically or essentially means that by paying upfront, you are saving a whole quarter, an entire quarter, and you can really, drum up support for that. Of course, you want to be able to know that that 900 is still covering your costs, the kind of break-even point that we did. But then there's always what we call time value of money. Like a shilling now is worth more than a shilling 1 year from now, because you can invest that money. If not, it implies that if you don't have that money and you need to meet business costs, you have to borrow, which implies cost of capital. So time value of money implies that you want to collect at the earliest possible point. So what I'm saying is that for discounting and promotions, again, as for discounting and promotions, you want it to be a win-win. Again, you can give discounts on quantities, where you say, if you buy 100 units, this is the price, but for 1,000 units, the price is less per unit, and so on. So that is adapting price strategies. And so I think we talked about value-based pricing, where you emphasize the unique features to justify premium pricing. Of course, again, that takes us back to the niche, because you will be able to know what matters to this particular demographic. This is what is important. We were doing, there's a startup we attempted it, and that startup was the idea was triggered by the fact that there was a donor, USDA. They had some money where they were allowing agribusinesses to be able to procure our services. So it was called a fee-for-service model. So they would be able to procure our services, and the USDA pays us. So again, customer, consumer, the thing I mentioned at the start. So it made us think that there is a product for agribusinesses, and so we actually followed seeds of gold around. You know, they go, they pitch tent in Nyahururu. We are there with them. We talk to farmers and can we do your books of accounts and manage your taxes? And the farmers look at us and they're like, but how will KRA know how much milk I took to the dairy? And we realized, well, guess what? We have a product, but we don't have market for it because the only person who is willing to pay for it is this donor, USDA, and them it is because they are impact driven. They want to see an increase in volume and value of trade in Africa. But the farmer, you know, down in Nyahururu or Elbagon doesn't care about this. So the niche, being able to know who is your customer really is important because then you can be able to understand what is their pain points, what matters to them, and by addressing their pain point, then they'll be ready to pay. Here is where I put the bundle offers. I thought I had it somewhere, but I thought I had it earlier. Yeah, but we've already discussed these bundle offers. So I think we can look at this. This is it's known as the technology adoption life cycle, and it looks at the various stages that a product goes through. And we say that it starts with early market and then moves on to the mainstream market. So the early markets, of course, the person that brings the product to market is yourself as the innovator. But then having brought it to market, you will have the people that will be able to buy. Initially, they are known as the early adopters. Now, these early adopters, they will be people whose pain points you address. And what business success theory says or posits is that you want to be able to really understand this. They say it's better to have 100 early adopters than 1,000 early majority, because these early adopters, they will ordinarily be loyal. Allow me to use the example of Google, because it's a product that I was an early adopter. Google they have what is now today. It's called Google Workspace. It started as Google Apps. In fact, they were calling it Google Apps. So this is what allows your business domain, like SPI, to be able to log in through Gmail, which gives you a host of benefits, you know, Drive, calendar, integration with other applications like time tracking and task management. So it's, I mean, if you know the benefits of Gmail, you can understand why it's good to have your domain on Gmail. So so they were calling it Google Apps. Then they moved from Google Apps so they're calling it Google Apps for Business. Then they moved it to what they were calling G Suite. And today they call it Google Workspace. Now, the thing they did as a market penetration strategy is what we call, it's a bit of a mix between freemium and, so this would be though a very elongated freemium, but it was a mix of freemium and penetration pricing to price skimming. Because what they did is that for us, early adopters, they said that we are going to have this product for free. So we got it for free. And it was, for a long time, we were on Google Apps. And later when they transited to G Suite and now to Google Workspace for free. But then they got to a place and they're like, okay, for you to be able to get some of these benefits, you have to start paying, all right? And at that point, true story, we tried to move to Microsoft. And I'm not saying Microsoft is not superior to Google. I'm not comparing either, because the thing that I know also with these things is it's usually an ecosystem. But given that the life of our business was in Google, we couldn't move to Microsoft. So what did we do? We just ended up paying, all right? We ended up paying. But then, as you can see, here I am, preaching to you the benefits of Google, even though I am not a reseller. And that is the benefit of early adopters, being able to identify your early adopters. And what they say is that any business that is able to, get enough early adopters is able to cross the chasm. They call it so you can think of the chasm as the valley, this valley to get to the mainstream market where now you have early majority, late majority, and now you have laggards. So laggards are the people who are joining Facebook today. If you are joining Facebook today, you definitely are a laggard because like it's been there, it's already been established. All right. There is like you're just on it because you have to. You never saw the need at first. So you want to be able to identify your early adopters. If you do, they will be not only willing to pay for your product, but they have what we call customer loyalty. Okay, and so you can be able to give them benefits. All right, those benefits usually in the long run will be a win-win. Benefits like what I was saying. We had this technology available to us for a considerable amount of time. So customer loyalty. So you can think through a reward system. Then customer cost management. That is where you are just pricing without compromising profitability. Part of cost management is as you scale, you have what is known as benefits of scale. All right, where you find that. Let me use a rudimentary example. If I'm in an office in which I am paying internet for 5,000 and I'm alone, and then I get 5 employees, I'm still paying 5,000 for the same bundle of internet. Right? So it's just until maybe I'm at 50 employees when I need to upgrade. But even then, the cost of internet per employee will never be as high as it was when I was all alone. So part of cost management is being able to know what benefits come with scaling, or what are the benefits of scale. And also the other thing is you're able to negotiate for discounts, okay, from your suppliers. You're able to negotiate for better pricing terms, better credit terms, and so on. And then, of course, to continually revisit the customer expectation, because as they say, customer is king. So that, and you can see that actually in most of the technologies, you'll be able to see that they don't remain static. There used to be a meme for the web browsers, where you have Mozilla, that's Firefox, and you have Chrome, and I'm not sure the others, and then Internet Explorer, and like the 3 or 4 browsers would be asked questions, and each one of them is answering, who are we? And it's only on the 4th or 5th question down the line is when Internet Explorer answers. Okay, so basically, the meme was making fun of the fact that Internet Explorer was very slow. But if you look at Microsoft, the guys behind Internet Explorer, you can see how they've been able to re-engineer themselves. When you look at the acquisition of LinkedIn, for example, when you look at how quickly they jumped into AI, and took a lead through investing into OpenAI and so on. So you realize it's like they've been able to re-engineer themselves, and that's what you want. You may say, okay, fine. In this case, I probably didn't do the best, but even if so whether I did the best or not, I am not as the word or as the saying goes, I'm not resting on my laurels, but I am keeping on innovating, and which I think should not be a problem, because anyway, you are an innovator. So this case study I took off the internet, so I'm not sure I really want to go into it. Instead, allow me to just talk about this one. There's something we did with so allow me to talk about this because they are relevant to us, I think, as Kenyans. And Elizabeth may probably be in a better place to talk about GDIH, which I think is a brilliant venture. GDIH, I'm happy to talk more about that, but I think it's one of the places where, for example, you'd want to align yourself because, and I know Kenya is part of it. So But then I want to give this example of Camry. And what we did with Camry and a company called Health Today is that you see, Camry has all along been able to do, I mean, they have many products that they've been able to research on. And simply what we did, so I was part of the Health Today team. So we just went to Camry and we told them, look, we have shelf space at Uchumi. So you can tell it was back then. That implies I'm older than this video is portraying. So those were the days of Uchumi. So, and we told them, look, we have shelf space at Uchumi, and these sanitizers that you have, how about we put them on at Uchumi supermarkets? And of course, our CEO, Madam Beth, actually had, it's true, she had good connections with Uchumi then, and we were able to put Camry sanitizers in Uchumi supermarkets. And it was a success. It was a success. In fact, at times I think we should just have kept onto that business and we would have become billionaires during COVID. But anyway, maybe we should not be the ones to profit out of a tragedy. But the pricing that we used that time, it was just simple. That was fine. So we looked at our cost and we would be able to say, this is our cost to be able to. And you see, the cost in this case is we are not manufacturing, so it is what Camry is going to sell to us at, all right? So that is going to be the cost, but there is value. And what is the value? We have exclusive shelf space at Uchumi to be able to supply, and Uchumi doesn't mind because this is a Camry product. So I think that's a good example where by being able to look at your costing plus the value, because the value in this case, and value most times, more often than not, value is perceived. Value is perceived. It is what you are able to convince the customer that that this is what the value of the product is. So by being able to have that perceived value, then we had demand, we had sales, and while it lasted, it was good business. So that would be all from me. I hope you have found the session informative. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Jeremy. We can take questions from the participants. So anyone with questions, feel free to type in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and then you'll be given permission to speak.
I'm trying to raise my hand, and I don't think you can see it, Elizabeth.
Yes, Jackson, we can hear you. Proceed.
Thank you very much. As I said, I'm driving, so I may not be able to. Now, Jeremy, I like your very many examples which are so real. I mean, I could associate with almost everything, especially the Google, the issue of Chase Bank and all that. I'm actually looking at even looking for a partner who I can attach their commodity to. My product is self-healing concrete, which deals with the repair of cracks, concrete, as well as waterproofing. From your discussion, I can almost see one of the cement factories where I can be able to perhaps link up with them and say, if you buy 10 bags of cement, I give you like one packet of product. But now, my question is, how are you able to segregate market where the product is almost the same thing, unless you're looking at my product in terms of its packaging. But in terms of segregating on any other way, I don't see it as much. Maybe you can expound a little bit how one can go beyond just what Chase Bank did.
All right. So let me to understand your question, Jackson. In terms of saying the product is almost the same, do you mean like there are competitors, or do you mean you have the same product but you want to segregate the same to different markets?
Yeah, I mean, the product is just like cement. And I'm
I
looking at
see.
how would I segregate cement to different markets?
Okay. The thing that is recommended to do is to start by identifying the first market, what we call the visionary customer. You want to be able to say, this is my visionary customer. Then once you've been able to identify your visionary customer, it ordinarily will be easy for you to find there is somebody else who didn't fit the bill for the visionary customer, but who is still marketable too. Allow me to use the example of Equity Bank. You see, Equity Bank, if you think of their visionary customer, would be what you can call Mama Mboga. You know, at the point in time where banking was unaffordable, they disrupted it by focusing on the low market niche. But then today, you know, Equity Bank has what is called Supreme Banking, okay, which is definitely not Mama Mboga's banking, and so on. So that's a good example, I think, where you can be able to first focus on the visionary customer. Who is that early adopter? All right, then once you've been able to focus on that, then you'll identify that there are people walking through the door who don't fit all they are not, because when you talk of a visionary customer, they usually have homogeneous qualities. Then you find there are a few outliers, and you're like, these outliers, they suffice to provide a different market, so that growth in itself becomes organic. I hope that helps, Jackson.
Yeah. To a large extent, I think I'm now be able to see the visionary customer that I can reorient the same product. I think that makes it well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mudengia. Any other question? I can't see any questions in the chat box. Or that might mean, Jeremy, there might be no additional questions, and your presentation was spot on and straight to the point as well. I'll just give an allowance of maybe 2 minutes. If we won't have any questions, we can just have a recap and then end the session. All right. Thank you, Jeremy, for the wonderful session. We've learned a lot on how to cost the innovations that we have from coming from the universities as well. And we will have also follow-up sessions on the same with the innovators, just to see how they're applying the knowledge that they've received today. And also, Jeremy, maybe for the sake of also the participants, if you're willing to to share the presentation, the PPT presentation, please you can share it with me, and then I can be able to share it with the rest of the attendees of today. Otherwise, we are very thankful, and also we look forward to other engagements and also learning from you. And also maybe you can give a parting shot, because maybe some of the innovators in the room or in the meeting might need to have follow-up meetings with you also on the side, and then they can see how to facilitate that as well. So maybe if you are willing, you can give out your email address or the contacts where they can reach you through. Otherwise, thank you so much, and have a good evening, everyone. Okay, the contacts are here. Let me share them with everyone. They can, yeah, they can feel free to reach you. So that's the email, and then Jeremy's contacts as well. So thank you so much, Jeremy, and looking forward to more engagements in this space as well.
Thank you to Elizabeth and the entire Victoria Ventures team and Innovators, and all the best to you.
Thank you.